This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real events. Names, dates, locations, and identifying details have been changed or dramatized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental or used fictitiously. This content is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not aim to glorify crime, promote violence, or pass judgment on real individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Some scenes may contain mature, disturbing, or triggering content. What you are about to watch could have happened anywhere, to anyone. It's inspired by real events. Whispers of truth, buried beneath layers of fiction. We've changed the names, the dates, the locations, but the emotions, the betrayal, the fear, those are real. This story is not meant to accuse, only to reveal, to make you question, who do you really trust? If stories like this keep you thinking, long after they end, hit subscribe, smash like, and drop your theory in the comments. Now watch closely, before the truth disappears again.
It was Wednesday, June 12, 2024, at 4:47 p.m., when Sheriff Darren Cole stood inside a small bridal shop just outside downtown Burnet. Alicia stepped out of the fitting room in a simple lace gown, and Darren let out a laugh he hadn't heard from himself in a long time, soft, nervous, the kind a man makes when he finally feels safe again. She turned toward him with this shy smile, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, asking if the dress was too much for a small-town wedding. Darren shook his head, took her hand, and told her she looked exactly like the future he'd been praying for. In that quiet shop, with the air smelling of fabric and steam from the tailor's iron, they felt steady, grounded, hopeful. Neither of them had any reason to think that someone connected to their past was watching this same future form and refusing to accept it. And as the hours moved closer to the wedding day, something began shifting around them. Quietly enough to miss, but powerful enough to change everything that was supposed to follow. If you're ready to understand what happened next, make sure you're subscribed and following. Let's step into the day their lives took a turn no one in Burnet County could have prepared for. It was Saturday, June 15, 2024, at 10:12 a.m., and Burnet County moved at its usual unhurried pace, coffee brewing at the diner, trucks parked along the courthouse square, neighbors exchanging familiar waves. Sheriff Darren Cole, 42, had walked these streets for nearly 2 decades, first as a deputy and later as the county's elected sheriff, a steady presence known for listening before acting and calming heated moments with a quiet word and a reassuring hand. "That's Darren," one resident would later say, "he's the man you call at midnight, and he'll answer." Another added, "He treats everyone the same, whether it's a neighbor or a stranger, that's why people respect him." His reputation wasn't built on force, but on patience, fairness, and an unwavering commitment to the community he served. Beneath the uniform and the calm exterior, though, Darren carried scars from a marriage that had left the town talking in whispers, a past that never fully went away. As the county prepared for a wedding meant to celebrate new beginnings, the streets and homes of Burnet County held their usual warmth, unaware that the day ahead would test the sheriff, the town, and the fragile peace of a community that thought it knew everything about its protector. It was the spring of 2009 when Darren Cole's life took a turn that would leave a mark for years, when he met Melissa Grant, 38, a woman whose beauty and energy drew people in but whose temper could flare without warning. Their connection was immediate, magnetic, but it quickly became a mix of passion and tension that no one outside their home fully understood. Neighbors would later recall evenings where laughter from their porch was suddenly pierced by arguments, and during one such night Darren admitted to a close friend, "I love her, but I feel like I'm losing myself in her world," words that captured the early warning signs of a love that demanded too much. Melissa's jealousy surfaced in subtle ways at first, questioning his interactions with colleagues, then with more intensity at town events, her voice rising so everyone could hear, leaving Darren embarrassed and unsure how to respond. Alcohol amplified these conflicts, turning private disagreements into public moments that left him humiliated, yet he stayed, bound by pride, duty, and a sense that leaving would signal weakness. Late at night, he would confide to a trusted deputy, saying, "I kept thinking I could fix this, that it would get better, reflecting the guilt that anchored him to a marriage that chipped away at his confidence. Every holiday, every school event carried undercurrents of tension, but Darren held on, hoping love would outweigh the chaos. Inside his home, the law offered no protection, and by 2013, he finally walked away, a choice that broke him but also began the slow process of healing, a decision that would eventually open the door to hope and a new life. Yet even in that relief, the shadow of Melissa's presence lingered, a reminder that some storms leave marks long after the skies clear, and that what begins in love can leave scars that echo through everything that follows. It was Thursday, March 21, 2024, at 2:36 p.m. When Darren Cole first met Alicia Perez at Burnet High School, during a routine parent-teacher conference that neither of them could have imagined would mark the beginning of a profound change in his life. Alicia, 34, a school counselor known for her patience and insight, greeted him with a quiet warmth, listening as he spoke about his niece's struggles, nodding thoughtfully, and offering guidance without judgment. Darren noticed immediately that she didn't see him as the sheriff, the public figure, or the man who had endured a broken marriage. She saw him as he was, a man quietly carrying burdens he rarely shared with anyone. Their early conversations were filled with small, human moments that lingered long after they ended. "You don't have to fix everything at once, Darren," Alicia told him during one walk through the school courtyard. "Sometimes just showing up is enough." He remembered that line months later, in the quiet of his office at home, and admitted to a trusted friend, "It's the first time someone's ever told me it's okay not to carry the whole world." Those words reflected a shift, the subtle reassurance that someone could witness his pain and respond with understanding instead of judgment, a type of connection he had not experienced in years. Over the following months, their meetings became regular, casual, and comforting. Lunches at a small cafe downtown turned into walks along the river, discussions about student progress flowed into personal stories, and gradually, Darren found himself laughing again in ways the town hadn't heard for years. On one afternoon, Alicia noticed him tensing during a conversation and reached across the table to squeeze his hand, saying softly, "You don't have to hold it all in. Let someone in." Those gestures, small yet profound, began to rebuild the trust Darren had lost during the turbulence of his previous marriage. Alicia also introduced practical stability into his life. She encouraged him to take breaks from the sheriff's office when long shifts became overwhelming, to check in with friends, and to allow himself moments of rest he hadn't permitted in years. "You've spent so long keeping everyone else safe," she said one evening, "it's time someone looked out for you, too." Darren followed her advice reluctantly at first, but soon found that sleeping without the weight of unresolved anxiety, sharing small personal thoughts aloud, and leaning on someone who genuinely cared gave him clarity and a calm he thought he had lost forever. The community noticed the change, too. Neighbors commented on how Darren seemed lighter when he walked downtown, how laughter returned to his eyes, and how he shared small smiles with Alicia that seemed private, meant only for her. In Burnet County, people quickly recognized Alicia as more than just the sheriff's fiancée. She was the fresh air Darren had been deprived of for years, a symbol of hope and renewal that the town embraced quietly, knowing the man they had respected for decades was finally beginning to find peace. When their engagement was announced in April 2024, the tone reflected the authenticity of their bond. Darren confided to a friend, "I never imagined I'd feel this calm about saying yes," and Alicia replied, "You've earned it, Darren. Let's make sure we protect it together." Their conversations, private and tender, became the foundation for a life Darren had only dared to imagine in moments of quiet reflection. Every decision, from flowers to ceremony plans, carried intention, signaling not just a union of two people, but a reclamation of trust, stability, and joy he had nearly lost. Even as invitations went out and townspeople began whispering about the upcoming wedding, subtle traces of the past lingered, like shadows along the edges of a bright day. Darren felt it in quiet moments, a memory, a worry, a sudden tightening in his chest, and though Alicia's presence offered warmth and reassurance, the town remained unaware that the calm was delicate. The wedding would come to symbolize more than love. It would represent the fragile balance of new beginnings, the hope of healing, and the unspoken truth that even the strongest peace can be tested by the echoes of what came before, leaving everyone waiting to see if this second chance could truly endure. By early May 2024, 2 weeks before the wedding, Melissa Grant's presence was impossible to ignore. Neighbors reported seeing her car parked outside Darren Cole's home late at night, engine idling, headlights casting long shadows across the quiet street, and whispers spread, "She's here again, just sitting, watching." Phone calls rang through Darren and Alicia's evenings, some filled with sobbing, others with shouting. One voicemail captured Melissa's strained voice, "You're really going to leave me, aren't you? You think you can just replace me?" Alicia first felt the threat in person during a routine grocery run. Melissa appeared unexpectedly, leaning in close, whispering with a mix of rage and desperation, "Enjoy your big day, it's the last one you'll have in peace." Alicia retreated, shaken, calling Darren, who tried to reassure her with calm authority, "It's jealousy. She's hurting, but she won't act out. I'll handle it." Yet even as he spoke, the signs were unmistakable. Melissa's obsession was persistent, and it was escalating. The town began noticing patterns. Cryptic social media posts tagged Darren, framing him as a betrayer while hiding her deeper instability beneath a calm public face. Friends and neighbors expressed concern. One remarked, "I tried talking to her, she just wouldn't listen. She kept saying, 'I can't lose him again,' and it didn't feel like she meant feelings. It felt more controlling, more desperate." Even in a small community where everyone knew everyone, Melissa's behavior was becoming impossible to ignore. Darren tried to maintain normalcy. He focused on wedding plans, rehearsing vows, and quiet evenings with Alicia, reminding himself that past incidents were erratic but had never crossed into physical harm. But the audience sees clearly, and the town begins to sense, that boundaries alone might not be enough to contain her obsession. Every missed warning, every ignored sign, was quietly amplifying the tension that would soon erupt. By the first week of May, the stage was set. Melissa's actions demonstrated escalating jealousy, emotional volatility, and a disregard for boundaries that made the upcoming wedding far from ordinary. The town waited, tense and watchful, knowing that what should have been a celebration of love and healing was dangerously close to becoming a moment of fear and heartbreak. It was Saturday, June 15, 2024, at 2:58 p.m., when Burnet County's small white church glowed under the afternoon sun, doors opening to neighbors, families, and friends who had gathered for a day meant to heal, to celebrate, to mark a new beginning. The piano in the corner played soft, familiar notes, and the scent of fresh flowers mingled with the warmth of sunlight filtering through stained glass, wrapping the congregation in a serene calm that had been years in the making. Darren Cole stood at the altar, hands loosely clasped, jaw tight with nerves, silently telling himself, "Keep it together, Darren. This is the day you've waited for," and in that quiet, he felt the weight of his past, the storms he had survived, and the fragile hope of what lay ahead. Alicia Perez appeared at 3:01 p.m. Stepping into the aisle with a grace that seemed effortless, her soft lace gown glinting in the sun, eyes shining with relief, and lips curving in a smile that told Darren more than words could, she leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "We finally get to start over," and he nodded, voice low, "Yeah." Finally, the words carrying a lifetime of restraint and hope, a moment of intimacy that only they could feel even as the town watched. The pews murmured softly with appreciation, children fidgeted, and older couples held hands, all wrapped in the quiet collective joy of a community that had long hoped for this day. The pastor's voice rose, steady and warm, "Friends and family, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Darren and Alicia," and Darren's gaze never left Alicia, tracing the line of her shoulders, the gentle sway of her train, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, small gestures that carried reassurance and calm. He could feel her grounding him, the presence that had slowly restored his trust and made him believe in something steady, a bond built on patience, honesty, and quiet love. Then, at 3:12 p.m., the world shifted. A loud, violent bang echoed from the church doors, shaking the wooden panels and silencing the piano mid-note. The congregation froze instantly, children gasped, hands clutched pews, and a faint creak of the floorboards underscored the sudden tension. Darren's heart jumped. Every instinct screamed alert, his body rigid yet controlled, voice ready for command, as all eyes darted to the doors that now swung open violently. And there she was, Melissa Grant, 38, hair disheveled, mascara streaked, cheeks flushed, breaths coming fast and uneven, each step down the aisle heavy with purpose. Behind her back, she clutched something concealed, her hands tight, knuckles white, and the air seemed to shift with the intensity of her arrival. For a brief second, the entire room held its collective breath, neighbors froze, children pressed into parents, and Alicia instinctively stepped closer to Darren, who positioned himself subtly between the two women, voice low but firm, "Melissa, stop. We can handle this outside." Her reply came in a scream that cut through the church-like glass, words cracking, voice raw, "This wedding is over." The declaration shattered the serenity, and in that moment, every smile, every hopeful glance, every gentle word hung suspended. The doors had opened, the past had entered, and no one in Burnet County could move without confronting the truth that what began as a day of healing was now a day charged with tension, uncertainty, and fear. The air itself seemed to pause, leaving the congregation trapped in a single heartbeat of anticipation, wondering what would happen next. It was 3:13 p.m., June 15, 2024, when the calm of Burnet County's church shattered. Melissa Grant moved down the aisle, each step uneven, sobs erupting into sharp screams that ricocheted off the high ceilings and silenced the congregation. Children clutched their parents, neighbors leaned forward in disbelief, and every heartbeat seemed to echo in the suddenly heavy air. Darren Cole's instincts as sheriff kicked in, but the personal fear gnawed at him. This was a woman he once loved, now fueled by years of unresolved anger, and the danger was immediate. Her voice swelled and cracked as she accused, "You threw me away, Darren, and now you pretend everything is perfect with her." She jabbed a finger toward Alicia, whose hands shook as tears streamed down her face. "You think you can step into a life that's not yours? You're a fraud, a fake angel." The pews shifted, programs dropped, whispers rose, and even the most composed neighbors froze, unsure how to react to the storm of raw emotion unfolding in front of them. Darren stepped forward, hands open, voice steady but soft, "Melissa, let's step outside. Please." His tone carried authority tempered with care, every word measured to de-escalate while protecting the bride and the congregation. Melissa's eyes snapped toward him, wild, defiant, and her voice rose, slicing through the aisle, "If I can't have you, nobody can." The room went still, the air thick, every person locked in the tension of the moment, and Darren realized instantly that this confrontation was unlike any he had faced in decades on the job. Alicia sobbed quietly, shoulders trembling, as Darren moved instinctively to shield her, one hand on her back, the other ready to intervene. "I'm here," he murmured, voice gentle but firm. "It's going to be okay. Stay with me." Their brief, intimate exchange underscored the trust and bond they had built, now threatened by a past that refused to remain buried. Melissa's right hand shook violently behind her back, the object concealed in her grip, her knuckles white, wrist jerking as if struggling with the weight of her intent and her own fear. The congregation's panic rippled outward. A dropped purse, a child stepping backward, murmured prayers. Darren's mind raced through options, calculating every move, knowing any sudden action could tip the balance. Every second stretched, every breath measured, as if time itself had slowed in anticipation of the first act that would shatter the fragile calm. For a heartbeat, the focus narrowed to that trembling hand, a silent signal of the danger poised to erupt, while Darren, Alicia, and everyone in the church were trapped in the space between what had been a celebration and what was about to become an event that Burnet County would never forget. Every eye followed the motion, every heartbeat accelerated, and the audience understood that in that suspended moment, the past had fully returned, ready to rewrite the day entirely. It was 3:14 p.m. June 15, 2024, when the soft music, the sunlight spilling through the stained glass, and the murmurs of anticipation shattered in a single heartbeat as Melissa Grant lifted her right hand slowly, deliberately, the object hidden from view catching glints of light, and every eye in the church followed her trembling motion. Children pressed against their parents, neighbors gripped pews, and Darren Cole's instincts sharpened instantly, heart pounding yet mind calculating every possibility. Voice low but firm, "Melissa, please, stop. We can talk outside," his hands ready, positioning Alicia behind him as the room held its collective breath. Melissa's lips twisted into a harsh, broken smile, mascara streaked, voice raw with rage and despair, "If I can't have you, nobody can." Her words ricocheted off the ceiling, slicing through the quiet hope of the wedding, and then, with a sudden movement, she revealed the object in her hand. A small handgun, the metal catching the light, aimed in a way that left no question about intent. The congregation froze, eyes widening, gasps stifled, some whispering frantic prayers, some ducking instinctively, and Darren, trained for confrontation but unprepared for this personal storm, murmured, "Stay down, stay with me," guiding Alicia behind him as his own body tensed for the first move. The church seemed suspended in time. Every heartbeat stretched. The soft creak of floorboards, the faint shuffle of feet, the whisper of a dropped program, these minor sounds became magnified, each one amplifying the tension as Melissa's charge gained speed, her hand jerking slightly, the gun aimed directly toward Darren and Alicia, a single action away from irreversible disaster. Darren's mind raced through options, calculating how to shield the bride, how to de-escalate, every muscle ready, voice barely above a whisper, "Melissa, it doesn't have to end like this," yet he knew words alone would not stop the momentum of years of obsession and pain. And then she surged, propelled forward, scream piercing, the gun raised, eyes wide and unrelenting, tears streaking her cheeks, body shaking with desperation, and the congregation's panic peaked. Some ducked instinctively, some froze, every gaze locked on that trembling hand and the inevitability of what was about to occur. Darren moved instinctively, positioning himself between Alicia and the charge, whispering firmly, "I've got you. Stay with me," a fragile line of human connection in the middle of escalating chaos. In that suspended instant, the world narrowed to Melissa's hand, the gleam of metal, the scream still echoing, and the charged energy of the room. Then, as her body lunged forward, the screen went black, silence crashing down over every spectator, every thought halted, every heart hanging in the empty void, leaving the audience suspended in the purest moment of fear, uncertainty, and anticipation. The wedding transformed into a scene no one would ever forget. It was 3:15 p.m. June 15, 2024, when the quiet of the small Burnet County church shattered, pews rattling under frantic feet, children screaming, parents shouting names, neighbors pulling loved ones toward the doors, deputies cutting through the confusion, "Clear the building. Everyone out now." The faint smell of blood mingled with polished wood and summer air, paramedics moving swiftly, lifting someone onto a stretcher, murmuring reassurances, "You're going to be okay, just stay with me," while sirens approached, lights flashing through the stained glass, the surreal clash of celebration and calamity leaving every witness frozen in disbelief. Darren Cole's eyes scanned the chaos, voice firm but tight with tension, "Move her first. Get everyone out." He guided Alicia behind him, whispering, "It's okay, you're safe now. Stay with me," grounding her amid the turmoil, while his mind catalogued every detail, the toppled programs, overturned chairs, scattered bouquets, every object a reminder of how fast life could change in one instant. Families reacted differently, some shielding children, some whispering accusations, "Why didn't anyone stop her?" or "How did this happen?" Rumors rippled immediately through the crowd, questions spreading faster than the arriving emergency vehicles, the sheriff's office becoming the epicenter of both crisis and community grief. Officers coordinated with deputies, keeping order while paramedics moved efficiently, their calm voices cutting through panic, "Breathe, stay with me, you'll be all right," blending clinical precision with empathy, a lifeline for those caught in the maelstrom. Outside, neighbors gathered, stunned, leaning on cars, holding children tight, reporters jostling for position, microphones extended, cameras flashing. Conversations were whispered, heavy with disbelief. Could this have been prevented? Burnet County, usually serene and close-knit, now faced a collective reckoning, the events inside the church rippling through every street, every home, every conversation. Witnesses carried shock differently. Some sobbing uncontrollably, some staring blankly, struggling to reconcile the violence with the sheriff they had always known as calm and honorable. Ambulances loaded the injured, sirens piercing the warm afternoon, while Darren, blood on his hands but resolve in his voice, whispered to Alicia, "We'll get through this." Together, offering a fragile anchor amid chaos, a single human connection holding steady as the town braced for the questions, judgments, and rumors that would define Burnet County for months to come. The echoes of that moment lingered long after the sirens faded, a reminder that a single day of joy could transform into a lifetime of trauma, and every heart in that town would carry the memory forward. By 6 p.m. June 15, 2024, Burnet County was still reeling, streets unusually quiet except for the distant wail of sirens and murmurs from neighbors trying to process the day's events. Guests who had fled the church gave statements to deputies, voices trembling as they recalled Melissa Grant storming the aisle. She wouldn't stop," one woman whispered, hands shaking, "I didn't know where to look or what to do." Another father said, "I grabbed my kids and ran." It felt like time froze, and nothing could move fast enough. Each account added pieces to the puzzle of a day that began with joy and ended in terror. Investigators pulled past police reports, quietly resurfacing incidents that painted a clearer picture of Melissa's behavior. Neighbors remembered nights filled with shouting, alcohol-fueled arguments, and calls to the sheriff's office. Deputies noted restraining measures had been discussed but never enforced, and over time, small warning signs had been dismissed. Experts reviewing the case highlighted patterns consistent with obsession, stalking, boundary violations, and escalating emotional outbursts that signaled danger long before anyone could predict the wedding's outcome. Therapists and domestic violence counselors spoke with local reporters, explaining that emotional abuse often escalates silently. "It's not always physical until it becomes physical," one counselor explained, voice careful but firm. Melissa showed classic signs: controlling, jealous, obsessive behavior, targeting anyone who represented a new life for her ex-husband, repeatedly testing limits. Their insights reframed the incident as not a sudden explosion, but the end point of months, even years, of tension. The town debated Darren Cole's actions, balancing admiration for his calm, honorable nature with questions about what could have been done. In small clusters, neighbors whispered, "He tried everything to protect everyone, but was anyone prepared for this?" Others countered, "Maybe there were signs, maybe someone should have done more." Conversations spilled into online forums, coffee shops, and parking lots, reflecting both empathy and frustration, revealing the emotional ripple effect on a community where everyone knew one another. As evidence was compiled, timelines, witness accounts, security footage, the picture became undeniable. The wedding was not just chaos, it was the eruption of years of emotional manipulation and obsessive behavior, warning signs that had gone unheeded. Every conversation, every missed report, every prior call to the sheriff's office became part of a narrative the town could no longer ignore, forcing families, friends, and neighbors to confront uncomfortable truths about human behavior and community responsibility. This wasn't just a wedding turned violent. This was the collapse of a carefully hidden tension, a chain of warning signs that led to a day Burnet County will never forget, the narrator in tones, voice steady, measured, and heavy with implication, leaving the audience suspended on the edge of the town's ongoing reckoning, knowing the fallout had only just begun. As the sun set over Burnet County on June 15, 2024, the quiet streets held an uneasy stillness, a weight that no celebration could erase. Inside the homes, neighbors whispered about what had happened, their voices low but heavy with disbelief. "I never imagined it could get that far, she seemed so unstable, but I didn't think it would end like this." Families hugged each other a little tighter, parents shielding children from a reality that had arrived too abruptly, proving that what appears as a joyful union can sometimes hide the scars of control and obsession. For Sheriff Darren Cole, the aftermath was more than professional. It was personal. Colleagues and friends described him as calm, honorable, and unwavering, yet even he was forced to confront the fragility of trust and the depth of human emotion. In interviews, he quietly admitted, "I thought leaving was enough, I thought moving on would be simple, but some wounds, they follow you, they test you in ways you never expect." His words reflected a universal truth. Past relationships, especially toxic ones, leave echoes that can resurface at any moment, no matter how carefully life is rebuilt. Experts reviewing the incident emphasized the patterns that had gone unheeded for too long. A domestic violence counselor explained, obsessive behavior escalates silently, often masked by charm or familiarity. When boundaries are ignored, it only gets worse. The warning signs were there, and they're lessons for all of us. Townspeople spoke of the need for awareness, sharing stories of jealousy, control, and emotional manipulation, acknowledging that what seems private can have public consequences, and that intervention, early, careful, consistent, can sometimes prevent tragedy. The sheriff's wedding, meant to symbolize healing and hope, had instead illuminated the hidden dangers that unchecked obsession can create. Witnesses reflected, "We wanted to celebrate love, but it reminded us how fragile peace can be when someone refuses to let go." Across Burnet County, conversations shifted from blame to understanding, as neighbors, friends, and families began to recognize the patterns they had once ignored, realizing that emotional instability, left unchecked, can escalate with devastating speed. And so, the story closes not with a single answer, but with a reminder. Vigilance, awareness, and compassion are vital. The events of that day serve as a warning, that the line between love and control is thin, and that even in a small town where everyone knows everyone, hidden struggles can erupt when they are left unseen. If you found this breakdown insightful, subscribe for more real crime stories that reveal the human psychology behind every headline, and stay with us as we continue exploring the stories where the ordinary collides with the extraordinary, and the hidden truths finally emerge.